Hey guys, NBA Finals less than 24 hours away. I think actually 21 hours away as I speak right now. Um, Very exciting, going to be a lot of fun, but I've had a hard time coming up with what I'm going to say about this series between the Miami Heat and San Antonio Spurs. Miami had a better regular season and they have home court. San Antonio has had a better postseason. They've only lost 2 games this whole postseason, one of which was in overtime. The Spurs have played a lot of overtime games that they've won as well. The Heat have at times looked unstoppable, and at other times they've looked positively pedestrian. So I don't know how to really break this series down. The storylines are fascinating. You know, on the Spurs side, I'm going to write about this a little more tomorrow, but Popovich could, one of the best coaches ever. He tries to solidify that legacy. I never went for the bullcrap about him being the best NBA coach ever. To me, that's just absurd. I don't get that at all. Duncan, his legacy. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, their legacies, they're not like the 20 best players ever or anything, but they are future Hall of Famers. LeBron, Wade, Bosh, Ray Allen. I mean, there's just this long list of massive legacy changers in this series. And that's all great and interesting to me. I could talk about that for a long time, and I probably will in my article that I post tomorrow. But as for breaking down how I think this series will go, I've had a hard time. Because I go through it. You look at the Spurs. What makes the Spurs go? I can think of 2 main things. Actually, let's go with 3 main things. Number 1 is Tony Parker controlling the ball, slashing through traps, making the right pass, mid-range jump shot, getting to the hoop. Fantastic point guard. And then I go, what are the Heat going to do to stop Tony Parker? He had, a tremendous season. He's a tremendous player. And I think, they're going to throw LeBron James at him, and they're going to tell LeBron, hey, lock down on this Tony Parker guy. Don't let him do anything. You're the best perimeter defender in basketball right now. You can take him. And then I go, well, wait a minute. Do they really want LeBron James to exhaust himself on defense? We saw 2 seasons ago when he exhausted himself defending Jason Terry, how it affects his game offensively. He's not as effective. So do they then go, all right, we're going to have Mario Chalmers and Norris Cole play defense on Parker, in which case suddenly Parker gets to run amok a little bit. And, okay, so that's the first key to the San Antonio success. And then I look at the second key. Their wide variety of quality three-point shooters. Gary Neal, to some extent Kawhi Leonard, although he wasn't as good this year as I wanted him to be. Danny Green, Manu Ginobili's a pretty good three-point shooter. Matt Bonner, even some of the guys they almost never play, like Patty Mills, is fine. So they have a lot of great three-point shooters. So then I go, all right, well, Miami, they're a very athletic team. They're a very fast team. They recover very quickly on defense. So they'll be able to swallow that stuff up. But then I think about that chess match. You've got a brilliant offensive team against a brilliant defensive team. And as good as Miami is defensively, San Antonio is just as good offensively. So I don't know how you break that down. Can San Antonio outsmart the Heat in this regard? We're going to have to watch a couple games before we really figure that out. And then this third reason, I think, is the emergence of Tiago Splitter. He's given the Spurs a second very credible big man to play with Tim Duncan. And the Tiago Splitter, Tim Duncan rim defense has been, for the most part, very good. One thing I really noticed in the Spurs sweeping Memphis is how good they were around the rim. They get baskets around the rim, and they prevent baskets on the other rim. Their length, their smart defense, all that stuff. So then I go, okay, well, Miami has Chris Bosh, who's the best stretch four in the league right now. Um, they have Chris Anderson, who's been playing great basketball this whole postseason. They have Shane Battier, who's a great small ball four. So they can handle that. But then I go, Chris Bosh is injured. Uh, Chris Anderson is a limited player. Shane Battier has not played very well in this postseason. So I don't know what to make of it. So I'm going to talk about what I do know before the series starts. And then after a few games, I think I'll have a much better idea of where we're going. But to me, this series comes down to a couple of things. The first thing for Miami would be Shane Battier. Can he play well offensively by hitting threes and making good passes? And can he D up on, say, Tiago Splitter? Miami likes to go small. They like to play Shane Battier at the 4. That means you're going to see a lot of game time where the Spurs bigs are Duncan and Splitter, and the Heat's bigs are Bosh and Battier. That means Battier is going to have to defend one of the Splitter-Duncan duo, probably Splitter. Splitter's much taller than Battier, and Battier is a great defensive player, and Splitter is not some tremendous offensive player, but can he hold up in spite of that height difference? That is very key. And can he start hitting some threes? He was particularly miserable against Indiana. He needs to step it up. And the other key for Miami would be Chris Bosh's health. I think that's pretty obvious. His ankle is still bugging him. He did not look right in Game 7. He did not play very well in Game 7. When he's on, he's a good defender, and he's a great stretch offensive option. I think Chris Bosh is a great player, but he needs to be healthy. And if he's not, and he can't hold up against the formidable Spurs front line, then you're turning to guys like Chris Anderson. LeBron James will have to play the power forward more often. Maybe Joel Anthony gets involved, which nobody wants. So to me, that's the second key. And the third key is how are the Miami Heat going to shorten their rotation? When you get into the finals, you can play fewer players. There are more TV timeouts. There are more opportunities to rest your players when the game isn't going. So you can play your best players 45, 46 minutes, no problem. You can play LeBron James all 48 minutes if you want to. You might not have to, but you can. You can play, assuming they're healthy, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh 44 to 45 minutes. That's easy. And, if you're looking at the other side, Duncan, this might be his last playoff basketball ever. He might retire after this season. I don't know. You can play him as much as you want to, pretty much, because there's no next season, possibly. And even if there is, they're going to get to rest for the next 4 months, so why not get as much as you can out of them? So how is Miami going to shorten their rotations? Obviously, you want Chalmers, you want Cole, you want Ray Allen, you want Dwayne Wade, you want LeBron James, you want Chris Bosh, you want Birdman, and then you want probably Battier. And are they going to not play Mike Miller at all? Are they not going to play... I'm even going to throw Joel Anthony in there because he did play a little bit, and he did play quite a bit in Game 6, and he really wasn't all that bad. And how much is that going to help a Miami team that is a little thinner now than they were at the start of the playoffs? For the San Antonio side, I think it's basically, most obviously, you have Tony Parker. Last year, I thought he didn't play as well as he was during the entire playoff run in the last 4 games against the Thunder. And because of that, the Thunder were able to pull off the backdoor sweep and win 4 games in a row. So Parker has to play at his best, his absolute best. The second key would be how would the Spurs utilize their superior depth in playoff basketball? Like I said, depth is not as important in playoff basketball, especially finals basketball. You can play fewer players, more minutes. So, the Spurs have a long list of players that they like and trust. Tony Parker, Patty Mills, Gary Neal, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, Thiago Splitter, Boris Diaw, Tim Duncan, Matt Bonner. Probably not Tracy McGrady, but there are 9 or 10 really trustworthy players on the Spurs roster. So do the Spurs play all of them, or do they do what, in my opinion, they should do and shorten their rotation to 8 guys? And who is that guy who gets cut out? Is it Matt Bonner because he can't play defense very well? Is it Patty Mills because Tony Parker's playing 45 minutes a game? That's interesting to me. And the third thing from the San Antonio perspective that I'm really watching for is, of course, their role players. Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, Thiago Splitter, I would throw him in there as well. Last year, they had their problems in Oklahoma City when they played Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals, and it was a big reason why things fell apart for them. There were a lot of other reasons, but they weren't ready for that spot. Kawhi Leonard's going to have to guard LeBron James a lot in this series. Thiago Splitter is going to have an interesting matchup. He's going to be playing stretch 4s and 5s like Chris Bosh and possibly Shane Battier, possibly LeBron James. Hopefully, we won't get into that, but it's possible. And Danny Green just been a quality, reliable sharpshooter. He has to keep making those threes. So with all this in mind, the storyline right now with Miami and with what they've done this postseason is that Miami will struggle. They will have problems, but when they absolutely have to get it done, they will dominate. That's the storyline after Game 7 against Indiana. I mean, how else can you explain 6 games, Miami versus Indiana? They're playing each other even. The games are close for the most part. And through 6 games, I'd say it was pretty much an even fight. And then Game 7, Miami wins by 25 points. How do you explain that other than Miami just turning it on when they needed it the most? Maybe there's another explanation for that. But if Miami wins these finals, then that's probably going to be the dominant storyline. If Miami loses these finals, the dominant storyline will probably become what a joke it was that they won 27 games in a row and then couldn't even win the finals at the end. Ask the 07 Patriots. It doesn't matter how good your regular season is if you don't win the Super Bowl, it just becomes more of a joke. So, because I don't think the Spurs are going to be able to keep up with LeBron James, because I think Dwayne Wade showed enough in Game 7 against Indiana to prove to me he's going to have an impact in this series, and because I like at least 2 or 3 of the Heat sharpshooters to bring their A game in this series, Ray Allen, Shane Battier, Mario Chalmers, even Norris Cole, even though he's not a sharpshooter. I'm going to say Miami in 6 games. I'm going to say they finish this off on their home court in Game 6. That's my prediction. I don't feel great about it, but there you go. See you guys later.